Now I would like to move to our next speaker. So it is my honor to introduce Dr. Pooja Gupta. Dr. Gupta is a pediatric cardiologist at the Children's Hospital of Michigan. She will talk to us today about the plant-based nutrition and wellness. Over to you, Dr. Pooja.
Hello.
Yeah, so
and
we're
good
really grateful that
afternoon.
Dr. Gupta was
It is
able
my
to
honor to
record
be
this
here
message
today.
for us. And here, can you hear it?
Okay.
Did it pause?
My journey with whole food plant-based diet started about 8 years ago, and I'm excited to share some of that with you. We will start with looking at the incidence of heart disease. So we know that United States, the #1 leading cause of death is heart disease. Papua Highlanders of New Guinea, they are heavy smokers, a lot of lung disease, but no heart disease, particularly those that survive into their 60s. On examining their diet, it is rich in several varieties of sweet potatoes. Similarly, rural China, Central Africa, the Tarahumara Indians from northern Mexico, no heart disease is seen. Another cultural group, the Seventh-day Adventists, they avoid animal products, coffee, alcohol, tobacco for religious reasons. And 50% end up being vegetarian, 90% of them consume dairy, and the vegetarians, as compared to their counterparts, have half the rate of diabetes and half the rate of obesity. In the migrant studies, we see that when people move from one country to the other, they take on the new disease risk that's prevalent in that country. This is a nice survey that was instigated by Premier Zhou Enlil in late 1970s. He was terminally ill with cancer and promoted this survey. And 880 people were surveyed, mostly Chinese. The cancer showed a geographical pattern, which is very interesting. And Chinese were mostly of the same ethnic group, and hence likely genetics was not the main factor. So what was the main factor? It is very possible that environment and diet had a role to play. That led to the next study, the China study, which is a landmark trial. It is probably the most detailed, large sample size study ever performed in relation to nutrition. It was performed between the three countries, America, UK, and China. 65 different counties in rural China were sampled. 6,500 Chinese were included. They were all provided with questionnaires and 3-day food diary. Local hospitals were visited to look at the disease pattern, and blood sample, urine sample, and food samples were obtained. The lab was all sent to London for analysis, and it was found that there were more than 8,000 statistically significant associations between lifestyle, diet, and the disease variable. This is another graph that takes into account the total fat intake and the incidence of breast cancer. And so what we see is as the total fat intake increases, the incidence of breast cancer goes up. So for example, Japan, lower end of fat intake, lower end of breast cancer. And the United States, much up there in terms of fat intake and a breast cancer incidence. 10 leading causes of death in the United States are listed here. The ones in red have a strong correlation with nutrition. So we've all heard before Hippocrates saying, let food be thy medicine and medicine thy food. So it is possible that our understanding of nutrition at this point is somewhat diseased. Texas Head Start teachers were surveyed in 2013, and what we found as a result is not a single participant was able to answer all 5 questions correctly, which included questions related to how many calories in fat, protein, carbohydrates, and simple nutrition-related questions. It was found that the nutrition-related knowledge, attitude, and behavior were severely lacking. Most of the teachers felt that nutrition was important. Health was a priority in the Head Start program. However, they all reported being confused, and it was also found that most of them were overweight or obese. So the SAD story, SAD is a mnemonic used for standard American diet. More than 2/3 Americans are overweight, more than 1/3 are obese. 25 million Americans have diabetes. 50% of the Americans have at least one prescription medicine or more. More than 70 million have high cholesterol. So if you are an American male, you have a 47% lifetime chance of cancer. If you're an American female, slightly lower, however, still high, 38%. We know that cancer deaths in the United States is the highest in the world. We also know from migrant study that even if you're not born in United States, we still, being residents, are at the same risk as somebody born in the United States. So we feel that food as medicine may be underutilized. Nutritional science may be neglected. We see that in 27 institutes at NIH, not even one is dedicated to nutrition. Medical students receive very, very scant knowledge in nutrition or education in nutrition, less than about 5 hours per week on an average. There are about 130 medical specialties that can be can be reimbursed for. However, nutrition is not one of them at this point. How about the cost? So out of 650,000 Americans dying from heart disease each year, up to 90% of them could be saved with diet and lifestyle. Currently, 20% of nation's GDP is being spent on healthcare. $2.8 trillion were spent in 2015, and the projected number is $16 trillion by 2030. Health dollars can be saved with lifestyle modification. So we know that animal health, human health, and environmental health, all 3 go into the equation for giving us the global health. So what about the environment? 18,000 deaths per year are reported in the United States from air pollution. 16,000 of those related to agriculture. 80% from livestock or animal-based food. About close to 200 gases are emitted, and they include ammonia, hydrogen sulfide, methane, and ammonia, when combined with atmospheric pollutants, forms toxic aerosols, contributing adversely to the environment. Plant-based diet, a good option. It proposes to reduce agriculture air-related or agriculture air pollution-related death by up to even 80%. So, well, there's good news and bad news. So we talked about high incidence of heart disease, cancer, lots of cost involved, environment, adverse effects. But the good news is up to 80% of them can be influenced positively with change in lifestyle and diet. So with that, we'll move to discuss what is whole food plant-based diet. It includes 4 major groups, food groups: fruits, vegetables, whole grain, beans, and some nuts and seeds. Plant-based diet is nutrient dense, lots of nutrients in a small amount of calories. Whereas compare that to calorie dense food, a lot of calories, not so much nutrients. Plant-based food, only source of fiber, no cholesterol, no saturated fat. And because it's packed with nutrients, It makes the premium fuel for our body. Here's a table that proves that, what we just talked about. So column 1, plant-based diet, and column 2, animal-based diet. And we see that zero cholesterol in plant-based diet, very low fat compared to animal-based diet, comparable protein intake or protein in a plant-based diet, and lots of fiber, no fiber. And then when we move through this list of nutrients, vitamin C, iron, calcium, beta carotene, vitamin E, folate, magnesium, just to mention a few, very high amounts, particularly in comparison to the animal-based diet. So of note, cholesterol 0 and fiber 0 in animal-based diet. Here's another little comparison of calories per pound. So green leafy vegetables, non-starchy vegetables, 100 calories per pound. You could eat all you want and still not have too many calories. Fruits a little bit higher, starchy vegetables higher, whole grain rice, pasta even higher, beans and legumes higher, avocados top the list. Breads and refined grain products, very high calories. Chocolates up to 3,000 per pound, and oils 4,000 per pound. So an elegant study was performed in University of Maryland School of Medicine. The subjects were medical students. Their ultrasound was used to measure the brachial artery diameter. A blood pressure cuff was inflated for 5 minutes. Vasoconstriction occurred. The cuff was deflated, and they were re-ultrasounded to see how long it took for the vasoconstricted blood vessels to vasodilate again. The medical students after that were divided into 2 groups. One group that ate a McDonald's breakfast, so had 900 calories with 50 grams of fat. And there was a group 2 medical students who ate 900 calorie breakfast but no fat. So they again went through the same blood pressure cuff inflation and deflation and remeasuring the brachial artery diameters. What was found is that group 1 had a much delayed arterial response. So the vasodilatation took time, whereas group 2, they had the vasodilatation at the same time as before. There was no change. So to understand what really happened here, we can dive a little bit into biochemistry. So nitric oxide synthase, producing nitric oxide, and arginine is an important building block, which is abundantly present in legumes, beans, soy products, and facilitates this reaction. ADMA is a competitive inhibitor of this reaction. ADMA itself is inhibited by an enzyme DDAH, and DDAH is inhibited by oxidative stress and major cardiovascular risk factors. For example, high triglycerides, high cholesterol, smoking, stress. So if DDAH is inhibited, ADMA is free to block this reaction, and hence nitric oxide is not successfully generated. If the diet is rich in arginine, it facilitates this reaction and nitric oxide is released. Nitric oxide is usually released by endothelial cells in the blood vessels, facilitating vasodilatation. So for the most part, the big question comes, how do we get protein in a plant-based diet? And most of the plant-based items have some amount of protein, and it varies based on which food group you're talking about. For example, green leafy vegetables, 50% of the calories are from protein, and for fruits, 6% of the calories are from protein. So calorie for calorie, it's a great source of protein. And if you're eating a balanced diet with some green leafy vegetables, some whole grains, some beans, and some fruits, you get enough protein. As we mentioned before, they are nutrient dense. How about athletes? Athletes have special benefit. So when body produces free radicals from oxidative stress. Usually, they're inadequately neutralized. And those free radicals, we know, can damage the cells, proteins, DNA by altering their chemical structure. The power of phytonutrients are the phytonutrients are the nutrients in the plants. They can mitigate the oxidative stress. They can neutralize the free radicals. And so athletes experience recovery, improved recovery time, more training time, better performance. This was also shown very elegantly in rats that did more on their exercise wheels, also in medical students by Professor Chitandon. So the game changers is the story. Our athletes are transitioning to plant-based diet. So much for those that are interested. And we know how popular athletes are plant-based. So give it a try. Powered by plants. Work all day at the energy. No need to carry. Eat all on unbelievable. And while doing positively the environment. So by improving our individual health, we can contribute to global health. How to do it, where to shop, what to eat, how to cook. I'm going to spend 2 to 3 minutes just quickly outlining that. Shopping at farmers market, CSA, local co-op, local markets, wholesale clubs, Trader Joe, great options, whole food. Shop what to shop: fresh fruits, colored veggies, greens, tofu, plant-based milk, oats, canned beans, refried beans, whole grain pasta, rice, quinoa, whole grain tortilla, bread, chia seeds, flax seeds, vinegars as your dressing, some nuts and seeds, and maybe some nuts, butter as needed. What to eat: breakfast options, oatmeal's great, overnight oats, fruits, bananas, smoothies, tofu scramble, whole grain pancake. Those are your choices. For lunch, bean salad, soup, chili, whole grain pasta, rice, air fried vegetables. The list can be going on and on. Again, little fancy items for dinner, such as burritos, chili, whole grain pasta again, sandwiches. And then the question, how to cook, how to prep your meals. Lots of wonderful recipes and demonstrations on YouTube and cookbooks and websites. So here's a list of the resources that I just mentioned, and I'd like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity, and truly grateful for your attention today. And then I'll take any comments.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really want to thank Dr. Gupta, because this was such an insightful presentation, and it really gives us a new insight into our diet and the choices that we make and how they can impact our health also at a global level. So I see we have some questions here. Go ahead, Richard.
First of all, I would like to thank you to Dr. Pooja Gupta for giving us such a great presentation. And Dr. Gupta, I have one question: that what is the role of anti-inflammatory diet in autoimmune diseases and conditions like long COVID?
Oh, it was a pre-recording, so.
So, can you guys hear me?
Oh, you're here. Oh,
Yes.
Yes, yeah, that's me. So thank you for bearing with my recording. And then the question, so what's the role of plant-based diet in anti-inflammatory conditions such as autoimmune disease and long COVID? So I would say there's enough data in autoimmune disease conditions that plant-based diet is hugely helpful. There is no published data on long COVID yet. We could draw stipulations and speculations that it might work the same way, but there's a lot of data that all the autoimmune conditions benefit hugely from this diet.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gupta.
Another question, Dr. Gupta, that a lot of our participants were sending in was that a lot of times we've been hearing a lot in modern research that milk isn't as healthy as we usually think it might be, or it's not as necessary for our diet as we previously thought. So could you comment on that a little bit? And like, is there research supporting that, or and so what's behind that?
So Dr. T. Colin Campbell, the author and the scientist behind the China study, he studied casein to a very great depth. Casein is the protein, it's the animal protein that's present in milk or dairy products, and it's also present, same proteins present in the meat. So if you're convinced of some data regarding meat, then it's the same thing draws into for milk. Particularly, there's a nice research he conducted, which is very well published and written in his book, The China Study. So he took, actually it was a study from India that he wrote about in his book, China Study. So they took two sets of mice, and one set of mice, they induced aflatoxin. It's a mold that's found on peanuts that can promote liver cancer. And the both group of mice had aflatoxin injected. One group of mice received casein protein, about 15–20% of the diet, and the other group did not. And they found that the group of mice that received the combination of the casein and aflatoxin developed liver cancer, and the others did not. And then he crossed them over after 6 weeks and found that the group that did not now receive the protein had tumor regression, while the other one developed it. So it was clearly seen that in presence of certain cancer stimulating agents, casein can hasten that process. So casein is the protein that's in milk and in animal products, and that's why the whole that whole category is listed together as non-plant-based or animal-based protein.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Gupta. And could you also please tell us about what are some alternate sources for calcium for people who can't drink milk? Excellent.
So actually, there's a lot of articles published, and if you go to the nutritionstudies.org, it is the website published by Cornell University, and it is a huge source of nutrition information. There's a lot of articles published that show how the calcium in milk is actually not even used well enough by the body, and how it's acidic, and it makes actually you lose calcium from the bones. So the rich sources of calcium can be a lot of beans. All kinds of beans are very rich in calcium, and then several of the green leafy vegetables and other vegetables can have calcium in them. Dried fruits have calcium in them. That's another source. Some of the grains, such as amaranth, has a lot of calcium in them. So there's a lot of sources of calcium in the plant-based kingdom.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you so much for your time today, Dr. Gupta.
So I had just one proposition, unless anybody has any comments or questions further. Okay, so I was hoping if there's any motivated volunteers who want to take up this diet or bring a change in their diet, maybe 5 of them, I'm happy to do personal consultation for a year, and then you can come back next year and report if you feel any better, if you're doing any better, or not. Your experience, you can share it with the group. So you can contact either the organizers or me directly and tell me if anybody interested.
Yeah, that's a really awesome idea.
Oh, wow. That's a great opportunity.
Yeah, so we can communicate and I can provide some guidance through the year. Okay,
Yeah,
excellent.
sure.
Thank you for your time. Yeah.
Yeah, we can connect you if you're interested. So.
Okay, great. So I don't want to take any more of your time, and thank you for having me here. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.